So this holiday feels a little bit more normal for so many of us, finally celebrating with so many of our loved ones. But tonight, experts are keeping a close eye on a new variant of COVID-19 out of South Africa. Now, virologists say the new variant seems to be more contagious than Delta, which caused a surge of cases across the globe. Now, the UK even banned travel from South Africa because of the variant.
The UK on Thursday banned flights from 6 southern African countries due to a new coronavirus variant spreading there. The new variant, called B.1.1529, has alarmed global health officials as it appears to be more transmissible and may evade vaccines. That's because its spike protein is dramatically different to the one in the original coronavirus that the COVID-19 vaccines
South
are
Africa
based
has
on.
responded, calling this decision to ban flights temporarily as rushed. How would you respond
Scientists
to
in
that?
South Africa have detected a new variant of COVID-19. This variant reportedly has a large number of mutations. It goes by the scientific label B.1.1529. Experts say that the new variant has become a reason for concern in South Africa. The number of daily infections has increased tenfold since the start of the month. The variant has also been detected in Botswana and Hong Kong.
Says that there's been an exponential rise in the number of infections caused by the new variant of the COVID-19 virus. The variant, which has been discovered from samples by the National Institute of Communicable Diseases, is also found in neighboring Botswana as well as Hong Kong. Now, in a media briefing held by the department yesterday, scientists said that they are expecting a rapid increase in the virus, which is driving a spike in infections. Now, of the 1,200 positive cases that were recorded by Wednesday this week, 80% of those were mainly in
monitoring the situation very closely since yesterday, based on the information that the South African authorities have been very openly and rapidly sharing in South Africa. It looks like this particular variant has a very concerning set of mutations, especially in the spike protein, which is needed for its transmission properties, as well as its the protection against the vaccines. So based on the genetic information, we are quite concerned about it. However, the epidemiological information that we get over how much this particular variant is spreading in South Africa right now is very uncertain and very unclear at the moment. So we are monitoring it very closely, and we aim to have a threat assessment of this done by the end today to inform our member states and the European Commission of our reading of the situation.
Global stocks were hit hard Friday by reports of a new coronavirus variant. European shares fell more than 3% in early trade. That put the Pan-European Stock 600 on course for its worst session in more than a year. Travel and leisure stocks plunged 6.5% after Britain announced a temporary ban on flights from South Africa and neighbouring countries. Shares in British Airways owner IAG and EasyJet lost around a tenth of their value. Oil and gas producers and miners also saw a big drop. European investors followed where Asian markets led. Stocks in Asia saw their sharpest drop in 3 months. Japan's Nikkei was down 3% at one stage, and US crude oil futures fell due to demand fears. Japan and Australia have also hinted at possible border closures. The new variant was detected in South Africa, Botswana and Hong Kong. Little is known about it, but scientists said it had an unusual combination of mutations that could see it avoid immune responses or make it more transmissible.
Lots of red arrows in Europe and in Asia overnight. Many European countries already looking to impose travel bans on people coming from a number of African countries. Karen Cho joins us right now live from London. And Karen, this is a pretty quick reaction as well to something that we are just learning about.
Becky, happy Thanksgiving to you and to Andrew. It's not the type of Friday we had anticipated here in Europe or across in Asia. I've got to say, many traders on this side of the world were hoping for a fairly quiet Friday, with the US having a fairly shortened trading period. But what we've got first up across the Asian markets, selling. And don't forget, a number of the central banks in the region had already started to move towards exit: South Korea, New Zealand. So it does beg the question whether that was just too early, too preemptive a move at this stage, if we are still dealing with the variant in this pandemic. So market selling off. China, a little bit of an exception, more contained, you've got to say, as you look at that percentage fall, but they have had a zero tolerance approach to COVID anyway, so not much may change on the back of this variant. I want to take you to Europe, because this is where we have seen a lot of the pain across the course of the early trade. Straight up, a knee-jerk reaction.
What we're seeing across these markets and the depth of your concern about this variant.
Absolutely. So we're entering a bit of a risk of day today, and we'll see how long this lasts. And one observation I would make is that as we kind of think about positioning for next year, speaking to clients about their positioning for next year, COVID concern is not top of their list. Sometimes it's not even their top three, among their top three concerns, right? Because there has been this comfort, and we'll debate if that's comfort or complacency, but there has been this comfort that vaccine efficacy puts a floor to how bad kind of COVID impact on markets can be. So I think that's really the root of the debate here, if this new variant represents a bit of a kind of bigger challenge to vaccine efficacy.
Scientists in South Africa are warning against a new coronavirus variant of extreme concern. They fear it could be more infectious than Delta and more resistant to vaccines. The new variant has already surfaced in neighbouring Botswana, Hong Kong and Israel.
A new variant of coronavirus has been discovered in South Africa, and this is raising concerns. Scientists there are warning that the variant could show immune evasion and enhanced transmissibility. Joining me now is President Biden's chief medical advisor on COVID, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Sir, thank you so much for being with us this morning. This is obviously a very significant day as we try to look at what the risk factors are here with this variant. What can you tell us about this?
Well, certainly there is a new variant that is now in South Africa, in the Gauteng province, that has some mutations that are raising some concern, particularly with regard to possibly transmissibility increase and possibly evasion of immune response. We don't know that for sure right now. This is really something that's in motion, and we just arranged right now a discussion between our scientists and the South African scientists a little bit later in the morning to really get the facts, because you're hearing a lot of things back and forth. We want to find out, scientist to scientist, exactly what is going on. But it's something that has emerged in South Africa and seems to be spreading at a reasonably rapid rate, in the sense of when they do test positivity, they're seeing that it's a bit more widespread in South Africa than was originally felt a couple of days ago. So it's in a fluid motion. We're finding more about it, and literally it's something that in real time we're learning more and more about.
Is it possible it's already in the U.S.?
You know, of course, anything is possible. We don't know that. There's no indication that it is right now. It seemed to have been restricted. There were some cases that originated in South Africa and that went to Botswana, and people who traveled and found out they were infected, and one that had gone actually to Hong Kong. So there's a lot of travel. You never know exactly where it are, and that's the reason why we're getting together to them to try and get the precise molecular makeup of it so you could actually test for it. And that's something that'll take a little bit to put the appropriate materials together to do that. But we are in very active communication with our South African colleague scientists.
So explain to us the questions and the concerns about how this might evade immunity, because there are so many mutations here on the spike protein, which is what the vaccines that we have are designed to hit. The question is now going to be, right, is that spike protein still permeable when it comes to the vaccine?
Yeah, that's what we're going to be finding out, because when you look at a mutation, it can give you a hint or a prediction that it might evade the immune response. What you need to do is you need to get that particular sequence of the virus, put it in a form in the lab where you can actually test the different antibodies. So you can have a prediction that it might evade, or you can actually prove it. Right now, we're getting the material together with our South African colleagues to get a situation where you could actually directly test it. So right now you're talking about sort of like a red flag that this might be an issue, but we don't know. Once you test it, you'll know for sure whether or not it does or does not evade the antibodies that we make, for example, against the virus through a vaccine, or following convalescent after you get infected. When you get antibodies, do those antibodies protect you against this new virus? The answer is we don't know right now, but we're going to find out for sure.
Just a quick update now for the latest on where the investigation into the origins of COVID-19 is up to and how the pandemic started. You might have missed this, but top Republican Senator Rand Paul had yet another fiery clash with Anthony Fauci this week. It was the first time Anthony Fauci gave evidence since the NIH was forced to correct the record and admit that they had been funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan.
I don't expect you today to admit that you approved of NIH funding for gain-of-function research in Wuhan, but your repeated denials have worn thin, and a majority of Americans, frankly, don't believe you. Even the NIH now admits that EcoHealth Alliance did perform experiments in Wuhan that created viruses not found in nature that actually did gain in lethality. The facts are clear. The NIH did fund gain-of-function research in Wuhan, despite your protestations. You can deny it all you want, but even the Chinese authors of the paper, in their paper, admit that viruses not found in nature were created, and yes, they gained in infectivity. Your persistent denials, though, are not simply a stain on your reputation, but are a clear and present danger to the country and to the world. As Professor Kevin Esfelt of MIT has written, gain-of-function research looks like a gamble that civilization can't afford to risk. And yet here we are again, with you steadfast in your denials. Why does it matter? Because gain-of-function research with laboratory-created viruses not found in nature could cause a pandemic even worse the next time. We're suffering today from one that has a mortality of approximately 1%. They're experimenting with viruses that have mortalities of between 15 and 50%. Yes, our civilization could be at risk from one of these viruses. Experiments that combine unknown viruses with known pandemic-causing viruses are incredibly risky. Experiments that combine unknown viruses with coronaviruses that have as much as 50% mortality could endanger civilization as we know it. And here you sit, unwilling to accept any responsibility for the current pandemic and unwilling to take any steps to prevent gain-of-function research from possibly unleashing an even more deadly virus. You mislead the public by saying that the published viruses could not be COVID. Well, exactly no one is alleging that. No one is alleging that the published viruses by the Chinese are COVID. What we are saying is that this was risky type of research, gain-of-function research. It was risky to share this with the Chinese, and that COVID may have been created from a not yet revealed virus. We don't anticipate the Chinese are going to reveal the virus if it came from their lab. You know that, but you continue to mislead. You continue to support NIH money going to Wuhan. You continue to say you trust the Chinese scientist. You appear to have learned nothing from this pandemic. Will you today finally take some responsibility for funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator, with all due respect, I disagree with so many of the things that you've said. First of all, gain-of-function is a very nebulous term. We have spent not us, but outside bodies, a considerable amount of effort to give a more precise definition to the type of research that is of concern that might lead to a dangerous situation. You are aware of that. That is called P3CO.
We're aware that you deleted gain of function from the NIH website.
Well, I can get back to that in a moment if we have time, but let's get back to the operating framework and guide rails of which we operate under. And you have ignored them. The guidelines are very, very clear that you have to be dealing with a pathogen that clearly is shown and very likely to be highly transmissible in an uncontrollable way in humans and to have a high degree of morbidity and mortality, and that you do experiments to enhance that, hence the word EPPP, enhanced pathogens of
So when EcoHealth Alliance took the virus, SHC014, and combined it with WIV1 and caused a recombinant virus that doesn't exist in nature, and it made mice sicker, mice that had humanized cells, you're saying that that's not gain-of-function research?
According to the framework and guidelines.
So what you're doing is defining away gain-of-function. No. You're simply saying it doesn't exist because you changed the definition on the NIH website. This is terrible, and you're completely trying to escape the idea that we should do something about trying to prevent a pandemic from leaking from a lab. The preponderance of evidence now points towards this coming from the lab, and what you've done is change the definition on your website to try to cover your ass, basically. That's what you've done. You've changed the website to try to have a new definition that doesn't include the risky research that's going on. Until you admit that it's risky, we're not going to get anywhere. You have to admit that this research was risky. The NIH has now rebuked them. Your own agency has rebuked them. But the thing is you're still unwilling to admit that they gained in function when they say they became sicker. They gained in lethality. It's a new virus. That's not gain of function?
According to the definition that is currently operable, you know, Senator, let's make it clear for the people who are listening. The current definition was done over a 2 to 3 year period by outside bodies, including the NSABB, 2 conferences by the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine on December 2014, March 2016. We commissioned external risk-benefit assessment, and then on January of 2017, the Office of Science and Technology Policy of the White House issued the current policy.
And coincidentally,
I have not changed
the definition
any
appeared
definition.
On the same day the NIH said that yes, there was a gain of function in Wuhan, the same day the definition appeared, the new definition, to try to define away what's going on in Wuhan. Until you accept it, until you accept responsibility, we're not going to get anywhere close to trying to prevent another lab leak of this dangerous sort of experiment. You won't admit that it's dangerous, and for that lack of judgment, I think it's time that you resign.
Thank you, Senator Paul, and I would like to give the time to Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, well, there were so many things that are egregious misrepresentation here, Madam Chair, that I don't think I'd be able to refute all of them, but just a couple of them for the listeners to hear for. You have said that I am unwilling to take any responsibility for the current pandemic. I have no responsibility for the current pandemic. The current pandemic, okay? Number 2, you said the overwhelming amount of evidence indicates that's a lab leak. I believe most card-carrying viral phylogenists and molecular virologists would disagree with you that is much more likely, even though we leave open all possibilities, it's much more likely that this was a natural occurrence. Third, you say we've
tested 80,000 animals and no animals have been found with COVID.
Senator Paul, the time is for
And third, you made a statement just a moment ago that's completely incorrect, where you say we continue to support research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
You proved it in August of last year.
No, your statement says, quote, I wrote it down as you were writing, you continue to support research that the Wuhan Institute of Virology...
You were in committee a month ago and said you still trust the
completely-
Chinese scientists and you still support the research over there. You said it a month ago
Senator
in committee.
Paul, I have allowed Dr. Fauci to respond. You've had your time. I'm going to give him.
If he's going to
one
be
more minute.
dishonest, he ought to be challenged.
Senator Paul, we will allow Dr. Fauci to respond after you've given accusations like that. Dr. Fauci.
Well, I don't have any more to say except to say that, as usual, and I have a great deal of respect for this body of the Senate, and it makes me very uncomfortable to have to say something, but he is egregiously incorrect in what he says. Thank you.
History will figure that out on its own.
BNN.